What's going on, guys? Welcome to your IT journey. Today, I am going to be teaching you how to join a computer to a domain. This is a really crucial task, very important skill that you're going to need if you're working in IT, whether you're on the help desk or an asset team or a field technician. You need to learn how to join computers to a domain. In a lot of cases, this could be an automated process, so you don't have to worry about that. But if it's not, then let's go learn how to do that. So I have my virtual machine here, and I created another virtual machine that I am going to be joining to the domain that I created. Now, before we get to that, there is a very crucial step that we need to get handled, or else you're going to start running into errors when you're trying to join the domain with the other computer. So right now, this computer that I'm on is my domain controller, and it's also acting as my DNS server. If you're at an enterprise, that might not always be the case. So essentially, a computer that's joining the domain needs to be able to find the domain controller. And in order to do that, it needs to be pointed to a DNS server that's able to resolve to the domain controller. In a lot of small companies, or maybe in your situation, the domain controller and the DNS server is going to be one and the same, just like in this example here. So I'm on my domain controller, which is acting as my DNS server. I need to figure out what the IP address of this machine is. There's a lot of ways we can do that. I'm going to open up the command prompt, and I'm just going to be doing an IP config. And so this is the IP address of the domain controller, which is also acting as my DNS server. So 10.0.0.4. Now, I need to keep that in mind for when we're on the computer that's trying to join the domain. So let's open up. This is the VM that's going to be joining the domain. Let me maximize that. So now we have to go into the network settings of this computer and essentially change the primary DNS to the DNS server or the domain controller. So I'm going to go to control panel or network. There's 100 ways you can get to the adapter settings, which is where we need to go. So this is the adapter from my machine. I am going to get into the IPv4 properties here. And here right now it's set to automatically obtain, so DHCP. We can leave this as automatic. We're not really concerned with that right now. Maybe in your enterprise or your environment, all your computers are going to have static IPs. Who knows? But this is what we're worried about right here. So obtain DNS server address automatically. We don't want that. We want to point this computer to the DNS server or to the domain controller or whatever DNS that's able to resolve to the domain controller. So the IP address of my domain controller or my DNS server, more importantly, is going to be 10.0.0.4. That's the VM that we were just looking at. So remember that this machine that I'm pointing to right now is the DNS server. It just so happens to also be the domain controller, but essentially the DNS server is going to be able to tell this computer, hey, this is the domain controller that you're trying to contact to join the domain. So we're going to hit OK. Cool. That's said and done. Now for the actual process of joining the domain, we have to get to the computer properties. So I'd like to just open up the file explorer, go to this PC, go to properties, and right here under computer name, domain, and workgroup settings, this is how you're going to actually change it. By default, before a computer joins the domain, it's going to be on a workgroup. If you don't know what a workgroup is, then maybe I'll have another video to explain that, but just, go ahead and Google that or YouTube it to figure out what that is. But so we're going to want to do change settings. And then this dialog box is going to pop up. And right here, to rename this computer or change its domain or workgroup, click change. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hit change. And this is where you can also change computer names if you wanted to do that. But this is what we're concerned about right here. Member of workgroup or domain, we're going to hit domain. And then this is where you're going to type in the name of the domain that you're trying to join. In my case, for this example, it's going to be your IT journey or YITJ. Now, when you're trying to join the domain, make sure you're typing out the full name of the domain. So not just YITJ. If I did that, I'm going to get an error. but I want to do the whole name of the domain. So it's yitj.com. Now we're going to hit OK. So see, when this prompt pops up, that's automatically means that, okay, it's finding the domain. Now it's asking to essentially authenticate yourself, enter the name and password of a computer that has the permissions to add this computer to the domain. So for me, it's just going to be your IT journey. Oh, and it's telling me my password's incorrect. 1 second. Your IT journey. Bam. So the account that I used is a domain admin, or an admin on this computer that has the rights to join this computer to the domain. So here you go. So it's successful. Welcome to the yitj.com domain. Gonna hit OK. Now, in order for all the settings to apply, you're gonna need to restart the computer. You can choose to restart now or later. But since for this example, we are all finished with the joining process, I'm just going to go ahead and restart the computer, and that's it. So just to summarize, make sure that the computer that you want to join the domain is able to point to a DNS server that is able to resolve to the domain controller. Because that's the DNS server is doing that routing. But in this case, or in many cases, if you're working at a smaller company, the DNS server and the domain controller can be one and the same. So either find the IP address of the DNS server or the IP address of your domain controller. And if you're working at a help desk or you're a technician, they're going to tell you what IP to use for the DNS. So don't stress that out too much. It's not something that you're going to have to go out and find. It's very crucial information for that to be, it has to be provided to you in order for you to do your job. So don't stress about that too much. But yeah, that is the whole process of joining a computer to the domain. If you have any questions, put it in the comments. If you found this video to be helpful, subscribe, like, share it, comment. And I have a Discord server that has a lot of information on getting into the IT industry, very useful links, certifications to get. So if you're interested in that, make sure to hit the link in the description. And thank you. Appreciate your time and have a great day.